ahead and get started with the handbook, okay? So in your black backpacks, you're gonna find this lovely multicolored handbook. There's also gonna be a pen inside your backpack. So if you wanna take notes while you're reading through this, you can totally do that. Let's go ahead and turn to page 1. All right, you're gonna see the front cover has a table of contents. If you're ever interested on what is inside the handbook and you just want to flip to that section. We also have President Nelson's welcome on the page 1. Okay, you can see him, lovely picture in the corner. You can also recognize him by his cowboy boots. He wears them every day with his suit. He's a proud Texan man. All right, let's go ahead and turn the page. Page 2 is just a welcome from us. So read that over in your spare time. Page 3, we have just an overview of our academic calendar for the next year. You're going to be focusing on spring 2020, which is near the bottom of the page, and summer 2020, because we're in the new decade. Oh my gosh, how did that happen, right? Like, where did that time go? All right, let's go ahead and flip the page to page 4 and 5. Awesome. All right, let me grab my handy dandy whiteboard marker. Let's talk about what your student is going to be completing here at Sac State. All right, don't judge me on my circle drawing abilities. Probably looks more like an egg, to be honest. But here at Sac State, we require different sections of coursework for your students to complete, okay? One of those sections is going to be general education, which we call GE, all right? That is composed of 39 lower division units and 9 upper division units for a total of 48 units total for that section, okay? Depending on your student's major, it could range from 36 to 102 units, okay? So I'm just gonna pick a number out of the hat. Let's say for major units, we're gonna pick 72 for funsies. Why not? Okay. This bottom section of the pie is for elective units or minor. Awesome. Okay. Does anybody know how many units it takes to graduate from Sac State? It's on the page. 120. There we go. My gosh, you guys are so good. Okay. Equals 120. All right? So for example, this student completed 48 GE units, 72 major units, and some math. Anybody got a calculator for me? Maybe? 100 and... Yeah? Yeah? Okay, awesome. Great. We're just going to go with that. Just don't tell me if it's wrong. Okay. That being said, does this number match that number? Not a trick question. Okay, good. Yes, it matches. So they are complete just by their major and GE, okay? They don't have to take elective units. They don't have to take a minor if they don't need to or want to. It's just up to them. Now, if your student has a major with less required units, you will have to fill in with elective and minor classes. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that page? Awesome. All right. So many of you have students coming from community colleges, okay? Which in that case, students are able to transfer over 70 units from that community college, okay? If your student is coming from a UC, four-year university, CSU, private university, places like that, you can transfer unlimited units to Sac State. Does that make sense? Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna flip the page, or well, I guess just have you look at page 5. Yes.
So the 9 upper division GEs, can they be transferred in as well?
They can be transferred in from a four-year university. No community colleges, unfortunately, have upper division classes. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. So on page 5, our lovely dean kind of talked a little bit about our college and university structure. Did anybody else have questions about that before we flip the page? Okay. So on this page, you can find your student's major, put a little star next to it because you might be going to the College of Arts and Letters graduation in 2 years, okay? Just keep that in mind. All right, flipping the page 6 and 7. Currently, your student is going to be learning this in their session with their leader right now, okay? So this is our general education breakdown. A lot of your students probably have most of this complete, which is great. That's what we want to see, all right? But just as an overview, your student should have completed area A, which is oral communication, written communication, and critical thinking. Just the basics for being a successful college student and being able to write essays and talk in front of people, okay? Your student may have also completed their area B, which includes like physical science, your chemistries, astronomies, all that fun stuff, as well as life forms, biology, anthropology, lab courses, and the quantitative reasoning in B4, that's math. We just like to call it fancy names. It's math, okay? And then we also have B5, all right? And that's just pretty much any B course, and they could have covered that as well. These last 2 sections, or these last 3 sections, are areas C, D, and E. So we have the arts and humanities area, and a lot of your students are going to have that complete. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Area D is where we have U.S. history, U.S. Constitution, and California government requirements, as well as some extra classes like psychology or sociology, which might overlap with your student's major. And then Area E is our last section on the page, which is just understanding personal development, okay? So those 9 upper division units that I talked about right here, you can see those at the top section. So I was talking about the bottom box. Now we're going to talk about the top box labeled graduation requirements. The bolded letters right at the bottom of that box say 9 units of upper division GE, okay? Those 3 classes, that's what this is, the 9 units of upper division, okay? So your students are going to be talking with their leaders today and discussing what classes they need to do to fulfill those requirements today, okay? Does that make sense? Are there any questions about that page? Going once? Okay, awesome. Let's go ahead and flip the page. All right. Page 8. This is all about finishing 4 and through and 2, okay? Did anybody else have any further questions about through and 2? Or did you just want me to do a quick overview? Yes?
Are there any other ways to get priority registration besides the?
Yeah, there are a couple different ways. So if your student is part of a NCAA sports team, they get priority registration. If your student is a graduating senior, and by that I mean if they have applied to graduate and they are either 1 or 2 semesters out from graduation, you'll get higher priority registration. You do have to have a certain amount of units to get there, but your leader's going to talk about that today. Also, if your student wants to be part of marching band, priority registration, because you got to schedule around band practices. Okay. There are a couple different other ways, but I'm not going to go into those unless you have specific questions that kind of answer it. Otherwise, registration priority goes with how many units you've completed. So seniors get higher priority because they're almost done. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so through and 2, as our dean discussed, is just a way for students to make an agreement between your student and the university, all right? And so that's saying that they are going to complete 30 unit years, right? That's how I always like to explain this to my students. Not all of us can take 15 unit semesters. I work and I go to school, and sometimes 15 units, that's just too much. Can't do it. So I often will take summer classes, okay? So I take usually 2 classes in the summer, which is 6 units in the summer, okay? And then I'll take 12 units each semester, which still gives me a total of a 30 unit year. Does that make sense? Okay. So there are different ways that you can split up that unit requirement for the year to fulfill the through and 2 pledge. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions? All right. Page 9. I'm going to talk about this more on tour. Oh, just kidding. This is keys to degrees. Wrong page. Haha. Reverse. Okay. Keys to degrees toolbox. Your student is gonna go over these tools today, okay? So some of those tools were talked about by our dean. So that's Smart Planner in the bulleted words right here on the second column of the page. You're gonna see Smart Planner listed, Sac State Scheduler, enrollment, financial aid meter, all that fun stuff, okay? So all of those tools are gonna be gone over with your student today with their leader, all right? And they can teach you all about that later when they come home and say, hey mom, dad, look at this, look what I found. There you go. That's what's gonna be talked about when you get home, all right? Are there any specific questions about the technology we have for registration? Okay. Moving on. Page 10 and 11, we're gonna focus on page 10. So this is just a graduation checklist, right? We like to include this because right now your student is focused on paper, essay, final. They're looking in the short term to finish out the semester, right? It's your job to focus on the long term, okay? I still live at home with my mom and dad. I am proud to say it because I love my parents and they are very nice to me for letting me do that. And they helped me so much making sure that I was on track for graduation. Just my mom saying like, hey, did you ever send in that graduation application? Super helpful, just as like a, oh yeah, should probably do that so I can walk across the stage, right? Yeah, pretty good? Okay. So this is just a checklist for you to help your students stay on track towards that graduation goal, okay? So part of that is advising that graduation application that I talked about, as well as what to do during the semester of graduation and what they might be looking to do post-graduation, okay? Does anybody have any specific questions about that? Okay, all right. Let's go ahead and look at page 11. All right, so the dean also spoke about this, what your role is with the student. And this is just a graphic breakdown of what you should be hoping to see from your student, okay? I don't know if the sleep bubble should be that big from my experience, but you know, that's the goal, right? We're hoping 8 hours a night. If we hit 5, gold star, right? Okay. So, a lot of the time, your student should be working on homework and studying, okay? Much of your time learning in college happens outside of the classroom. Your classroom time is fairly small compared to the time that you spend outside of class writing your papers and reading your articles and things like that, okay? Does that kind of make sense? Okay. Work hours, we suggest about 20 hours of work a week just to help balance that work and college lifestyle, but if you need to work more than 20 hours, many college students do, and we have resources for that as well. Okay. Any questions before I flip the page? All right. Page 12. This is more on academic advising. So I'm a trained academic advisor. Michael behind the camera is a trained academic advisor, and all the leaders are as well. Okay. We also have full-time academic advisors that are going to be visiting the advising rooms that your students are in right now. And so they are full-time staff here at Sac State. And they're going to be visiting with your student to help out today. So your student's going to get some experience with them, right? So there are two kinds of academic advisors here at Sac State. We have general education. That's me, Michael, and everybody in a green shirt, okay? And then we have major advising, which is specific to your student's major. All right, does that make sense? So if they have questions about nursing, they should go to the what department? Nursing department. If they have questions about criminal justice, they should go to the what department? Ah, you got it. You're smart. I believe in you. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, awesome. Looking at page 13, we do have specific advising for student athletes. And then I would also like to call your attention to the gray box. If your student is thinking about changing their major, just keep in mind that impacted majors here at Sac State are biology, business administration, criminal justice, graphic design, health science, nursing, and psychology, okay? For the nursing folks, your students have already been accepted. That's great. You don't have to worry about this anymore, okay? Does anybody have any questions about that before I flip the page? All right, awesome. Let's go ahead and turn to 14 and 15. Ah, here's the page I was looking for earlier. All right, so these tutoring resources are all across campus here at Sac State. I'm going to show you where all of those are while we are out on tour today. But just some ones that I'd like to point out are the math tutoring lab, which is going to be in Shasta Hall now, not in Brighton Hall where it says on the page. If you want to take your pen, write Shasta Hall. They've recently moved departments. We also have the Peer and Academic Resource Center, which is great for students that are having problems in lots of different kinds of classes. I went there for my econ class, which I had a free tutor there that was able to help me with my econ homework. Okay. So we also have University Reading and Writing Center, which is great if you need somebody to read over your essay because you're like, I don't even know if this is good anymore. What's happening? I'm too focused on it. Okay. Degrees Project is also available as well as Persist down at the bottom. Paving excellence, retention, success in student trajectories. Okay. All right. Looking on the page 15. Let's talk about grading policies. So your students are all bringing in their own specific GPAs, right? And it's going to combine with their Sac State GPA to be an overall grade point average. All right, does that make sense? So when they see their transcripts, there's going to be 3 different numbers where the GPA is. It's going to be term, Sac State, and overall. Does that make sense? Okay. Also, what I like to tell my students is that here at Sac State, we do value pluses and minuses on the grades, okay? That being said, a C minus is a 1.7 GPA, and a C is a 2.0, okay? And that's an important distinction because a 2.0 is good standing here at the university. While I have faith that all of your students are amazing and they're going to do great here, I just like to remind them that to keep their GPA in the back of their head, making sure that they're meeting that base standard of a good GPA. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. Also on this page, we have an example of, or an explanation of FERPA. It's the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act of 1974. Basically, what it says is that we protect your students' information from anybody who's going to be calling about it. Okay? So, in that sense, if you want to call about your students' information, fortunately, we cannot release that information to you because we don't know if you're telling the truth, right? That being said, if your student would like to grant access for you to have access to their information, or if they want help keeping track of things, we do have a form that would allow them to do that and that would allow you to do that, okay? Does that make sense? You can ask me about that later. I can hand you the form, okay? All right. The other things I like to go over are what the different letter grades are, like W, W, and I grades, okay? A WU is an unofficial withdrawal, okay? That's when your student doesn't officially withdraw a class. Maybe they thought they dropped the class and they just didn't do the paperwork right. They might see this on their transcript. That counts as an F. Oh, so make sure that your student is following the correct procedure to drop a class, all right? And we're going to talk about that a little bit later, and your leaders, or your student's leader, is going to go over that very much in depth. All right, a W is something completely different, something that all of you are probably fairly familiar with. That's just a regular drop. That's just to signify that the university is keeping track of how many times your student is dropping classes past a certain date, what we call the census date, okay? Doesn't count for anything. They can only do 18 units worth of them, and they start fresh at Sac State. Okay? All right. An incomplete, that is for students, that's the I grade. That is for students who have an unforeseen event that prevents them from continuing classes at the end of the semester. Okay? So for example, my friend had a baby during finals week. That being said, she could not take her finals, and a conversation was had between her and the professors, and they decided that she would have 6 additional months to finish that coursework, okay? So that option is there for students who still want to get credit for that class because they worked hard all semester and they don't want to drop the class. Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions about this page? All right. So the Career Center is absolutely open for students, okay? It does get busy, usually during the end of the semester. So I would suggest if your student has any career questions, to hopefully get them answered early during the middle of the semester when they're not super busy. But they do have drop-in hours Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and you can see that at the top. And this is just kind of a list of questions and information about what the Career Center does. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Page 17 is just a continuation of that, more of that information. So go ahead and flip the page. Page 18 and 19 are academic and student resources. I'm going to go over many of these on tour, but I'm just going to go ahead and point out a few of them that you might not see in person. Okay. So we are probably not going to get a chance to visit the Cooper Woodson project. So their number is down in the bottom. They work with students to provide leadership opportunities and service opportunities for students. We also have the Garden Scholars Program that offers support for students who have been in foster care. Okay. Let's see. We also have MESA. I don't think we have any engineering students here today, but if your students decide to change their major, that's a support system for engineering students. Go ahead and flip the page. We also have a testing center on campus, and you can see that on page 20. If your student ever has to fulfill an exam because they missed it, they might do it in the testing center. Or if your student would like specific testing environment, if they have special requirements, they can also take that at the testing center as well. All right, page 21, study abroad. Is anybody's student interested in study abroad? Raise your hand. Yeah? All right, awesome. So, fun thing that I always like to point out is that you pay the same tuition you would here as you would at whatever college you're going to. So if they want to go to Japan, they pay the same tuition rate in Japan as they would here, which is sometimes a nice little tidbit. If you thought it was going to be expensive, at least tuition is going to be the same as here. Okay. All right. Any questions about study abroad? Ask me later. They're also going to have a table during lunch. Okay. All right. Let's turn the page. Page 22 is all about the technology resources we have here on campus. And this is always my time to promote the Sac State app. All right. So Sac State app is great. My favorite part of it is the parking maps. Some of you had some questions about parking. So before I leave the house, I always like to check to see what parking structures are full. So by the time I get there, I know what parking structure to head to. Okay, so it's a live map, so it keeps track of all the parking on campus. So for example, if on the map it shows that that parking structure is red, not gonna go there, it's pretty full. Yellow is, still probably wouldn't head for it. You're looking for the green parking structures with that parking app, okay? Super, super helpful. All right, turn the page to page 23, course registration. Your students are going to register for their courses today, hopefully, okay? So they are going to get anywhere between 9 and 15 units today, depending on if their departments have to register them for their classes. There's lots of different things that go into the registration process today. But just so you know, late registration is going to start on the 10th, which is, does anybody know when the 10th is? Tomorrow, right. So right now, your students have open access to all the classes, and I and the rest of the 30,000 Sac State students do not. So you all have access to the classes right now. You have free for all, there's lots of open seats. Come tomorrow, or well, midnight tonight, okay? Late registration is gonna open and 30,000 students are going to have access to those classes. So do your best to help your student figure out their classes today so that they don't have to deal with and fight for seats with students tonight, okay? Does that make sense?
Haven't you already enrolled?
Yes, but sometimes they want to drop classes or change classes around and wait lists move around a lot as well. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that? All right, so that's an important thing to remember. I'm sure your students are going to be told about that today, okay? But just remind them for me. All right, let's go ahead and turn the page. Okay, so Registration fees for fall. Here at Sac State, we pay by block. We do not pay by unit during the normal semester. So for example, if you are taking, well, if your student is taking less than 6 units, they're gonna pay a smaller fee, and you can see that to the left box in the top section of the page. If you're taking more than 6 units, you pay a flat rate. So that's you're taking 6 units, or if you're taking 21 units, you pay that price, okay? So, want more bang for your buck? I would say go as high as you can possibly go on the unit cap so you can get more classes done for the amount of money. Okay, that's what I always like to try to do. All right, past that, unfortunately, I am not a financial aid advisor. And I would love to answer your financial aid questions, but the only question I can answer for you is where to find the financial aid table at lunch. Okay, and I can point you to their direction. I don't want to mess up your financial aid, so I want to point you to the people who can actually help you, which is not me with financial aid, all right? So if you have those questions, please make sure to come find me or anybody in Green Polo. We can show you where they are. Yes?
Are the rates for summer the same, like for the 6 or less?
So the rates for summer are different. So summer classes are taught through the College of Continuing Education, and you pay per unit for the summer. So it's $280-ish per unit for the summer. It's different. Any other questions? Okay, all right. So just so you all are aware, if you do not have financial aid or deferment, registration fees for registration for spring 2020, they're going to be due January 17th, okay? So you can see the due date listed, new spring 2020 students registering in January. It says mid-January. The date is January 17th. That's when registration fees are going to be due if you do not have deferment or financial aid. Okay? All right. Everybody get that written down? Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and look at the next page. Page 25. You are unfortunately not going to hear from Beth Lesson today, but you're going to hear from the Vice President of Student Affairs rather than the Associate Vice President. So pick your poison. They're both amazing. His name is going to be Ed Mills, so you're going to get to speak with him later today. But this is just a welcome from Beth Lesson. If you have any problems or any questions, her office door or her email inbox is always open for your questions, okay? That's what she likes to tell you also. I will tell you for her that you can always feel free to email her, and you can find her email through the Sac State website, okay? All right, let's go ahead and turn the page. These pages are just some information about what we have here on campus. So for example, we have a food pantry on campus, adventures, safe rides, all these resources I'm going to point out to you on tour. I'm going to do my best to remember all of them. If you have any questions about any of them, they do have a website linked with a description as well as a phone number on these pages, okay? Let's go ahead and turn the page. Page 29 is what we're looking at now. So there were some questions earlier about parents and families programs. So you are going to meet Ms. Haley Myers today and in a later session after major advising. And so she's going to be able to answer a lot of questions about how you can get involved and how you can support your student or your spouse, partner, friend, brother, sister, whoever you are to the student. Okay? All right. So let's go ahead and flip to page 34. All right? Awesome. So this page is just a little bit about student health and counseling, all right? So part of being a Sac State student, you pay for access to the well. So we have what I like to call our emergency room, which is amazing, might I say. I'm a very clumsy human being, and I have, in fact, had a spine x-ray, a elbow x-ray, and an ankle x-ray, all free. So if you if your student ever has an issue and they get sick, get a cold like I'm getting over right now, or they hurt themselves in any way, the only thing the doctor's office here won't do is blood work. But other than that, unless you're getting crutches, everything else is all included, okay? You do not have to have your own insurance. Just being a student qualifies you for this service, okay?
And that's included in the.
That's included. Yep, it's included in your admissions, okay? So make sure to take advantage of that. They also have a discounted pharmacy. So for example, like a bottle of aspirin is $8 at Rite Aid. It's like $2 at the pharmacy. So tell your students to stock up, give them a list, so tell them to go shopping for you. All right. So all of those health and counseling services I'm going to talk about later on tour as well. All right. So along with those specific health and doctor's offices, we also have counseling specific, whether it's group or single one-on-one counseling. We also have those services as well. Right? Over on page 35, let's talk about campus housing. Is anybody going to be living on campus? Raise your hand. Student, maybe? Don't know yet? Still on the waiting list? Okay. All right. That's okay. So student housing can sometimes be a little bit tight during the winter. It's a little bit easier to get in if you're coming in after the summer because more students are leaving. That being said, we do have other student housing options that are around. I can't say them because they're not affiliated with Sac State, but if you want to come talk to me afterwards, I can give you some examples of some different apartments that are around. That being said, they're not cheap, but they are livable for the semester. They might have to wait before they can get on campus housing, okay? Does that make sense to everybody? All right, we do have transfer specific on campus housing. That's in the American River Courtyard, and that's more of an apartment layout rather than the dormitory bunk bed kind of classic layout, okay? So we do have like multi-room, kitchen, living room apartments on campus for older students. Okay. Let's go ahead and turn the page to the map. Ta-da! We made it. You did it. You did it. Not me. You did it. Okay? So this map is going to be helpful for you today on tour. If you'd like to have it out, that's totally fine. If you just want a map and if you want to come and visit on your own, this is for you. On the very back page, 37, you're going to see a directory. Okay, so these are just some services that you might need to call for your student, or if you need additional information, you can call those, as well as Parents and Families program is bolded, okay, in the Parents Hotline. All right, so do I have any final questions on the handbook? Or any at all? Or did I just do such a good job, or y'all just want to go outside? Did a good job. All right, I'll take that. That's okay. All right, go ahead and stay seated just for a minute. Let's go ahead and wrap everything up. We will be offering an online tour if you're interested. I will also be going outside. So if you would be interested in coming on a walk with me around campus, that's great. If you want to stay in here for the online tour, which will be starting in about an hour, you can also stay for that, okay? So anybody gonna stay for the online tour, raise your hand. All right, we're all taking a walk outside. That's awesome. Okay, so take a bathroom break. Go ahead and meet me outside the doors, and then we'll get ready to go. Okay, awesome.